Welcome back to Comic Book Storylines. I'm Brian Sorensen. You also know me as Bri the Comic Book Guy on Instagram. I'm also on YouTube now. You can look up Bri the Comic Book Guy and see Comic Book Storylines on YouTube as well. I do slideshows of all of the issues that we talk about every week now. This will be the episode 3 on the YouTube channel. I hope you like it. If you have any comments, suggestions, comment on the YouTube channel below this post. You can also reach out to me, brythecomicbookguy@gmail.com. So we're into it now. This is part 3 of Onslaught. We are starting in the main event this week. Last week was the big reveal. Spoiler alert, I'll give you a few seconds. If you did not listen to last week's episode, I'm going to count to 5. And so you can pause, listen to last week's episode, and then continue from here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, now that you're caught up, we had the reveal that Professor Xavier, the heart of the X-Men, was influenced when he shut down Magneto's mind and somehow had this whole big conglomeration in his head and in his body and turned into Onslaught. So it's a shocking thing for X-Men fans and the X-Men themselves as they start to figure out how to confront the heart of the X-Men, the leader of the X-Men, who knows them better than they know themselves. So we're going to start out. What they did with Onslaught is they did it in 2 different methods. They did phases and they did it in impacts. Phase 1 and Impact 1, and then Phase 2 and Impact 2. The Phase 1 and 2 were direct leads, like direct main storyline. The impacts were going along with things that happened during the main storyline, but were kind of like offshoots of the main event. We're going to combine everything together since a lot of the ones that we're going to talk about this week kind of gelled together, continuations as we so to speak. So we're going to start out with some of Phase 1 and Impact 1 this week. Starting out with the part 1 right after the effects of Onslaught X-Men is Uncanny X-Men 335. We see Apocalypse has this henchman named Ozymandias, and he's like this stone figure who's like the keeper of events in Apocalypse's tomb, prison, whatever he calls it. And Apocalypse awakens after his time of regeneration. Like every time Apocalypse disappears, he regenerates and then comes back a year or 2 later. So Ozymandias is trying to tell Apocalypse what just happened, and he's been transcribing it on the walls of his pyramid, and he's like, oh, okay, so Xavier has fallen from grace. Once was 2, Magneto and Professor X is now as 1. They stand united, they are Onslaught, and he's talking about how the X-Men left to their own devices would soundly defeat themselves. But it's not the last time we're going to see Apocalypse here. And he talks about something called the Age of Wonders near its end. And he says it's a brief period in history where mere humans share the glory of power beyond their ken, a time where men flew to the stars and fell to the earth as gods. Fantastic Four. When the favored son of immortal Asgard came to work as the Earth as embraced mortals, an assemblage of heroes gathered to avenge themselves. Who is he talking about? And Ozymandias is like, how do you know it's ending? And we're going to see him a few times this, because he sees the Watcher has appeared and he's watching events. So Apocalypse, being this like immortal being, knows what the Watcher's doing, knows what the Watcher does. So if the Watcher is hanging around, something huge is going to happen. And something huge will happen. So we open up. The Avengers with X-Man take a Quinjet to the mansion. The Avengers know where the mansion is, one of the few teams that knows where the X-Men live. They fly over the mansion. It's almost totally destroyed. They're all looking out the window. Now the Avengers that are there, Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Vision. And X-Man is saying, the X-Men are alive. They're here. All of them except Xavier. And they're like, is he dead? No, but he was here. It's pretty obvious by the damage to the estate. So they land the Quinjet and are immediately attacked. Quicksilver goes and runs to find the attacker, pulls out Gambit and Bishop. And they're confused. I mean, the X-Men have just been through a bunch of crap. So they don't know who to trust right now. So they're not so friendly with the Avengers right now. And the Avengers are like, okay, we stand ready to assist. And Storm kind of blows a lightning bolt and says, okay, you guys need to freeze while Jean reads your minds and make sure you are who you are. So Nate Gray is in the Quinjet still, and he spots Jean Grey. But in X-Men's issues, he conjured up the essence and kind of like brought back into existence Madeline Pryor, Cable's mom, who was the clone of Jean Grey, Sinister's clone. Now, she looks just like Jean Grey. So he goes, thought the Avengers could help me, but they've brought me smack in the middle of Madeline? How is that possible? So he comes out of the Quinjet and he pulls these memories together from all of the X-Men right out of their brains, and the Avengers are like, I guess this is the bad guy, and they tell him who he is. Cyclops stops X-Man from pulling out those memories, and he tells the Avengers, our enemy is Professor Charles Xavier. And he starts explaining what's going on, and the Avengers are kind of like, how can this be? Professor Xavier is like this kind, gentle person. So Iceman and the rest of the X-Men say he's being influenced by Magneto. Now Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are right here, who are Magneto's kids. So they're like, how can we not have seen that our father was involved this time? So we see a little glimpse, Muir Island, where the team Excalibur is. Now we're going to see Excalibur towards the end of the episode, where Moira McTaggart and Excalibur say, I'm not deploying you guys yet because the X-Men are coming here. We see Cyclops and Jean and some of the X-Men are coming here because it's time to unseal the Xavier protocols. Now I'll leave until we get to that issue of what that is. When we go back to the mansion, Bishop is rewinding and playing back Jean's tape call for help, and Gambit comes in. He goes, are you okay? And he goes, how could I have known it was Xavier? And we see the apology. Bishop finally apologizes to Gambit for mistrusting him and doing all the things that led him to believing that it was Gambit and the whole point. So they forgive each other. They don't hug it out, but they go back up, and Cyclops has this strategy session. So you got the Avengers and the X-Men in a strategy session. Now, we hardly ever see this, so this was an interesting thing, that the Avengers were in the mansion, in the war room, talking about stuff, kind of divvying up the teams. So they know that they need to find Magneto, so they're getting a team together to go find Magneto, which they will. And then they say, we have to send a team to the Fantastic Four because Franklin Richards is kind of involved. But also, we need a team to stay here and keep an eye on the X-Man. Now, just as that's going on, X-Force comes in from their adventures beyond. They got Jean's message. So Captain America and Cyclops tell Domino and X-Force they have to stay and keep an eye on X-Man, while they divvy up the rest of the team to go to find Magneto and to the Fantastic Four. They split up. Now, while that's going on, Storm has kind of had this kind of off again, on again, like friend relationship with Cable. Now, she knows Cable's been in a little bit of trouble, which we'll see in his books, so she tells Cyclops that she's going to go find Cable. She can be off and doing that while everybody else is doing that. And Cyclops, who is Cable's father, said, I wasn't trying to be overprotective of my son, but Storm says, I'm going to go take care of that. Now, here's where a lot of different things branch off and where we'll see them appear later on in the impacts and phases. Wolverine says he needs to go check out a hunch, and we'll see Wolverine in his couple of issues as part of the crossover and everything. And while that's going on, Iceman is talking to Angel and Psylocke, and they're on their way to the mansion, but he says, no, you guys go to Muir Island to rendezvous with Jean and Cyclops because they're going to help them unseal the Xavier protocols. Now we see Dark Beast in the Morlock tunnels with Onslaught, and he's trying to sway him to experiment on all the X-Men again, and he's saying, I've spared you because you are going to be my disciple, you're going to be one of my dark servants, and soon the entire planet's going to be mine. And the last page of the issue is gleaming into Onslaught's eye, and you see Charles Xavier huddled up in a ball getting ready to scream. Like, oh crap. Next we're going to get to X-Man 18. Now this is going to be phase 1, and it's going to lead into X-Force 57, which was Impact 1. So Mr. Sinister goes and opens Apocalypse's tomb, and he sees that Apocalypse is missing. So he says, this is truly dark times, but I have a mission. Now his mission, he needs Nate Gray. He's become aware of Nate Gray, but he wants to take him for himself because he knows deep down that Onslaught needs him, but he wants him too because Sinister in the Age of Apocalypse created Nate Gray. So he wants to figure out what makes Nate Gray tick in this universe. So X-Force is watching him. It's Caliban, Meltdown, Domino, Sunspot, Siren. They're watching X-Man. And they're trying to have like a strategy session while everybody else is going off like how to help the X-Men defeat Onslaught. But they start immediately with an attack. Sinister comes in and he starts breaking all of the security drones that are around the mansion. What was left of the mansion anyway. So X-Force is like, hey, somebody's infiltrating the mansion. We need to go figure out who it is. So they send a little lookout party and are instantly taken down. Sinister comes into the picture. Now, this is the first time Nate has seen this Sinister, and he instantly remembers from what happened, and he goes, this is this world Sinister. He created me. So X-Force tries to stop him from taking Nate, and as much as X-Force tries, Mr. Sinister is pretty much a badass, and he takes them all down with some psychic blasts and everything, and he tries to persuade Nate Gray to come to him. He goes, the unexpected X-Man, whose arrival here has merely awakened the concept of Onslaught. You have all of these possibilities and all these things that you can achieve, but you need to come with me. And he kind of knocks him unconscious for a minute and knocks him completely down for the count. Now Domino wakes up and she's like, okay, so you're not going to take him. And he goes, okay, watch me. Then we get to X-Force 57, where we're going to watch him take him. Now, Domino is like, you are not taking him. You need to stay back. And he is, he is, what are you putting? You guys couldn't attack me. What are you doing? Like, you're going to stop me? But out of the roof, Caliban comes in. Now, here's a little thing, backstory with Caliban. Caliban was a Morlock, and Apocalypse recruited him to become one of his horsemen, so he, genetically altered him and everything. Now we find out that when Apocalypse did that, now Apocalypse and Sinister had been kind of at each other since Sinister worked for him 200 years ago. We see that Apocalypse kind of put this in safeguard to attack Sinister if he ever came around. So X-Force is like, what's Caliban doing? And he just full on attacks Sinister, and they can't figure it. X-Force guys are like, what is Caliban doing? We've never even seen him do this before. So he's distracting Sinister while the rest of the X-Force guys try and take Nate away from the scene, try and get him into the Morlock tunnels to kind of get him away from Sinister, because they know Sinister's not going to stop until he takes him. But he manages to dodge Caliban, and Boom Boom, who's one of the X-Force characters and really good friends with Caliban, he's like, I don't know what came over me, so she tries to protect him from Sinister. So the rest of the guys are in X-Force. Sinister shows up. So they all start trying to physically attack him since they know their weapons aren't going to be any good. But Nate has finally had enough, so he starts attacking Sinister. And Sinister's like, no, stop. You win. He goes, this is what I really wanted you to do. He goes, link with my mind and I'll be able to show you. But it's a trap, and Domino tries to tell him. So Sinister kind of traps Nate, and he feeds back his psychic energy and knocks all of X-Force out, including Nate, picks him up and says, okay, now we can begin. So he leaves the mansion with Nate Gray, which is probably not good either way for Nate. And then we get into another little Phase 1, Impact 1 little coupling here. It's Cable 34, and then we're going to get to Incredible Hulk 444. Now, from the end of the last two issues, Cable was left in a little bit of a shambles when his attack from Post. And he's kind of trying to pull himself together because, as I've said in the previous episodes, his powers kind of keep that techno-organic virus together. And when it doesn't, the techno-organic part of him, like that metallic arm, it starts going crazy and reshaping. So right now we're seeing his arm kind of stretching out and turning into this gigantic metal claw. So he's kind of trying to build up his power again, but he senses that somebody is coming. Somebody's coming to attack him. And he takes some weapons from his motorcycle, and he's getting ready to attack. And the Incredible Hulk comes down. He goes, puny man with gun cannot stop Hulk. Hulk is the strongest there is. And Cable's like, okay, so he sent the Hulk after me now? We've never faced such a calculating foe. And if Onslaught is who I think he is, we're in some serious trouble. So he's like, okay, Hulk, I don't want to hurt you. And the Hulk immediately stops. And he's finally Smart Banner again, because in this time period, he's the Smart Hulk, Bruce Banner's smartness with the Hulk. He goes, I have no intentions of hurting you. We've never met, so that's why we can't be, unreasonable. I was joking about the Hulk smash. I'm here to help. And he goes, what are you doing here? I'm here to help. Put the gun down. And he goes, your mind's telepathically blocked from me. That can only mean one thing. He goes, yeah, I came to help. I just didn't say who. Onslaught sends his regards and kicks him 3 blocks away. So he's trying to fight the Hulk. He goes, okay, maybe I can get in the Hulk's mind and release Banner and release the hold on him. Now here's an interesting thing that the Hulk starts doing. It was the green Hulk, purple costume Hulk and everything, Smart Hulk. But now we see a shift. He's trying to Psylink with Bruce Banner to try and release him. But out of the crater that Cable smashed him in, Gray Hulk appears, and it's the Joe Fixit kind of like thug Hulk, and he starts wailing on Cable, and Cable's kind of weakened from this too, but he's still trying to stop him. He goes, "Stop! You're better than this. Let me help you." And he goes, "No, I don't want any help." But all of a sudden, the cavalry comes. Hulk is like, "Why is it suddenly so cold?" And out of the blue, Storm comes down. It's kind of like in the movies where Storm suddenly appears and everything. It starts like a big storm and lightning and everything. She blows him out of the line of sight with a big whirlwind to try and protect Cable. And Cable's unconscious at this point, so she takes a lightning bolt, wakes him up, and she goes, "Hey, we've got to run." He goes, "No, we need to stop Hulk right now. If only I can Psylink with him." And she's like, "Stop. Before you go any further, I need to tell you what happened. Xavier is Onslaught." He goes, "I know. No one else could have deceived all of us except the mightiest telepath in the world." And he goes, "Deep down, I've always wanted to believe it was possible that something like this would happen." And she goes, "He needs to be stopped, but we need to stop the Hulk." And then the Hulk runs at him, charging, goes, "You'll never beat Onslaught because you won't have a prayer after beating me." So he needs some more strength to reach the Hulk. So he grabs Storm. He goes, "Okay, mind link with me. 2 minds are better than 1." So she slows him down enough with a lightning blast, and he blasts him again to try and get into him. He goes, "Banner, come on, I need you to reassert yourself." So he changes color again, and it ends up transforming him into the savage, no Bruce Banner Hulk. So he's full on enraged Hulk. When we get to Incredible Hulk 444, it picks up right after that, where Hulk just smashes Cable. He puts Cable on his shoulder, takes off. Now Storm's flying through the air, trying to catch up with him. And he's, bouncing off of walls, bouncing off of buildings, saying, "Leave me alone." He does that Hulk clap, where like the thunder clap, where he blows her out of the way and everything like that. Now, while that's going on, Cable's not just unconscious. He's in Hulk's mind, so just a little bit, trying to break down this huge barrier that Onslaught has surrounding him, and he's got to break through the barrier and break through the Hulk's consciousness to get to him. But the Hulk is trying to beat it out of him, but Storm once again is trying to separate him from Hulk. Storm's not a slouch. She's a pretty good powerhouse. So Cable runs into a gun store, and he needs some like tear gas to kind of help slow down the Hulk. Hulk breathes it in, but he takes off. He jumps out of the way, but Cable's pretty smart. The gas follows him and kind of knocks him down for the count, kind of unconscious briefly, ever so briefly. So he links with Storm again. He goes, "Okay, we need to get into his mind now. We need to, she needs to electrify him with this huge, huge lightning bolt, kind of knock him out. And while you're doing that, I'm going to hit him from the other end with this psychic bolt too." So he knocks him down, knocks him unconscious, and he goes, "Okay, this is the last time we're going to be able to do this, so deep down." So he goes deep into his psyche, breaks out Bruce Banner, and Storm lightning bolts Hulk, wakes him up, and Hulk goes, "Oh, okay, hi." Like he was totally out of it. Like he didn't know what was going on. And they go back on a Blackbird, and they're like, "Okay, Hulk, you up to this?" He goes, "I want a piece of whoever's been screwing with my mind, so I am totally in on this." So now we have the Avengers, we have the Incredible Hulk with the X-Men. So this is shaping up to be quite the event. Now, speaking of the Avengers 401, the Avengers take Gambit because they need an X-Man to go with them to find Magneto. Now, Hank Pym is hooked up to Cerebro, trying to find Magneto's energy source, like his power source. Now, this is a huge thing because we've never seen this. As I've said in the last episode, or the last part here, the X-Men and Avengers, they've teamed up occasionally, but we've never seen them interacting the way they have. Like, they're all like this kindred spirit in this one. They're all trying to figure out. Hank Pym is sitting at Cerebro, pinpointing Magneto's location, and he's commenting on how sophisticated this technology is and how amazing this stuff is. So we see that the Avengers, we have Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Vision with Gambit and Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. They're going after Magneto. So some of the other X-Men, we've got Bishop and Iceman, go with Hawkeye, Wasp, Black Widow, Hank Pym, and Crystal to go to check out the Fantastic Four to see them. we'll get to the Fantastic Four parts next episode. So on the way to go find Magneto, Wanda kind of retells from her perspective how grueling it was to be part of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants back when she was a bad guy under the influence of Magneto, way before they even knew that he was their father, and how he was using his power to assert over them, and how dominant she was, and how like sad she was that that happened. And Quicksilver's like, I promise I'll never let him hurt you ever again. So we get to the location where Magneto is. Now remember, Magneto is this amnesiac at this point, and a few issues before Onslaught started, he ran into Rogue, who was on leave from the X-Men after the events of confronting Gambit about his past, and he couldn't quite tell her everything that went on, but she left the X-Men, kind of needed to figure out her own things, but she ran into this amnesiac Magneto. So she's taken it upon herself to kind of like, okay, we need to like reboot Magneto. Since he doesn't remember who he is, it's going to be really bad if we try and jumpstart that memory and tell him who he is. So I'm going to treat him as if his own guy. Like, he looks younger. He's not acting anything like Magneto. So she's kind of like, watching out for him. He knows how to use his powers, and she knows he knows how to use them. So they're kind of like on this kind of spiritual road trip to kind of do everything, get back into the world, and she's trying to kind of like rehabilitate him. But as they're kind of walking along this pier, the Quinjet comes, and the Avengers immediately see him. Now, they think he's the bad guy, influencing over Xavier at this point. They don't know the full story, which we'll get to the full story eventually. But Quicksilver immediately attacks him. And Rogue is like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Stop what you're doing. And Gambit comes out of the Quinjet going, Rogue? And they're all like, what are you doing here? So Quicksilver goes, you've found another victim. And he starts attacking them even more. And the Avengers are like, Rogue, what are you doing with them? You need to get away from him. And they're like, this is Magneto, the most ruthless, heinous mutant ever. And she's like, stop, don't say anything, shut up. So she starts attacking the X-Men, kind of blast Vision out of the world, or out of the solar system, but she throws him right into the sky, almost in the orbit. And Iron Man tries to help Magneto up, but he's pissed because these guys just started attacking him out of nowhere. So he blows Iron Man through like a Navy ship that's in the nearby yard. And they're like, Rogue, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm warning you guys. Don't do anything. Don't attack him. Stand down. She punches Thor. And you know how powerful Thor is, so it's kind of funny. He goes, that was a punch worthy of a frost giant. She goes, well, I'm about ready to kick your big Norse. And then Gambit intervenes. He's just like, come down here and tell us what's going on with Magneto. So we see him blowing off Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, Captain America, and he kind of puts this magnetic hold on Scarlet Witch. And it's just reminding her of what he used to do. She breaks free. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. Are you okay? Because remember, he doesn't remember he's Magneto. So she's like, your voice, your manners. It's not him. But Quicksilver doesn't hear this, so he rages and charges after Magneto. He's getting ready to just knock him unconscious with this big boulder. And Scarlet Witch stops him right beforehand. She blows a hole in the pier to separate them. And Quicksilver goes, the pier is shattered. That's impossible. And Wanda goes, that's merely improbable, and that's my specialty. And she goes, this is not him. Something has happened to make him different. Stand down. So like, okay. They all stand down, and Magneto, who's going by Joseph at the time, he goes, I'm sorry, is there anything I can do to help? I apologize for overreacting. And they get all on the Quinjet, and they get ready to go back to New York. Gambit's kind of looking at them because she's really chummy with Magneto, and we all know how jealous Gambit can be. So this is the last issue we're going to talk about this week, Excalibur 100. Excalibur's not into the fray yet. They've got their own things going on in the book that are completely unrelated to the events that are going on. But while that's going on, Moira McTaggart had called the X-Men to come to Muir Island because there's something under the Excalibur headquarters that the X-Men needed to see. So Cyclops, Jean Grey, Psylocke, Cannonball, and Archangel come to Muir Island, and they tell her Charles Xavier's gone insane, and she's, she kind of heard about what's going on, and she goes, there's something underneath Muir Island, something that Xavier said, leave me this room a long time ago, and she said he laid it with alien technology from his time in the Shi'ar Empire, And she's like, okay, Jean and Cyclops, you guys come down with me. So the issue goes back and forth with what's going on with Excalibur and this. So I'm only going to concentrate on what's going on with the main events that tie into Onslaught. So she brings him down these cryptic stairs underneath this tunnel, and she unlocks this room, and this voice comes on. The crypt is unsealed, scanning brainwave patterns. Moira McTaggart, Scott Summers, Jean Grey. Unlocking Xavier Protocols 000. And a hologram of the professor comes up with a hologram of this biosuit. And it says, if you three are seeing this image, I have become a mortal threat to the X-Men. In this instance, I must be stopped at any means necessary. Years ago, I made a study of my own brainwave patterns, my own sonic abilities, and the image next to you is this anti-sonic armor. The wearer will be protected from my talents completely. When I stop speaking, the armor blueprints will download. An angel comes in, and it says, new brainwave signature, red. Warren Worthington, Scott Summers, Jean Grey. Xavier Protocol 021 activated. And this is when it starts getting really scary on what the Xavier Protocols really are. And in the event, Wolverine becomes a danger to life. You're like, what? And Jean goes, every night when Charles went to his study to work, he was thinking of ways to kill the X-Men. So she starts crying, because the Xavier Protocol for Wolverine talks about how, since he lost his medal when Magneto removed his medal, Wolverine is kind of like amped up on his powers. But since he doesn't have his medal, there is a way to kill him. You have to take off his head and remove it from the vicinity of his body. So you're like, that is complete. The professor thought of how to kill Wolverine. You're like, what else is going on here? So she tells Psylocke and Cannonball to come down. And then it goes, Protocol 193, Cable. So then she talks about how Cable can be killed, on how you need to squander the weaknesses of his techno-organic virus, and you need to focus on that to kind of make him forget. So they're like, okay, stop, download everything. So the X-Men have been through a crap ton already. Their mentor went insane, attacked them. Then they find out that there's this thing laying underneath Muir Island, a research facility for mutants, and the professor figured out a way to take out all the X-Men, every mutant, including himself. So that is helpful for them, but they find out that he knows how to take them all out. So it's freaking them all out that not only do they know now how to take him out, but he is also aware of how to take them out in the most gruesome ways possible. So they download all the specs for the armor, they're crying, they're all upset. So Jean, Cyclops, Angel, Psylocke, and Cannonball, they're on their way back because they're pretty much going to be the cavalry with this sonic armor. They need to bring this back, get everybody armored up, and away they go to the next phase and kind of take out Onslaught. So that's where we're going to leave off this week. There's still more to come with Phase 1 and Impact 1, which we'll start talking about next week, that kind of ramp up to the kind of mid-event climax. There's something that's going to happen towards the end of the next episode that launches into Phase 2 and Impact 2, which we'll eventually get to in the coming weeks until it all kind of boils up into the end. So we're seeing how this started out as an X-Men problem. All the wearers of Xavier's emblem, all the mutants. But then we see how he's interested somehow in the Fantastic Four and Franklin Richards. Because as I've said previous weeks, at this point in Marvel's continuity, Franklin is a mutant, and he's got some really out of control, out of this world powers, which the Fantastic Four have figured out how to kind of control him, how he doesn't have to exert his powers, and he's a kid, so he still has all that raw power. So we see that he wants Franklin Richards for something. Well, that's going to be trouble for the Fantastic Four because that's Reed and Sue's kid, so they're not going to give him up without a fight. And now that the Avengers and the X-Men are involved, there's going to be some serious stuff that go down when he tries to go after Franklin Richards. And we're going to see that next week. So if you want to catch up on the events from the previous 2 weeks, you can find all of my links on Instagram, my Facebook, and on YouTube. You can go back and listen to or watch on YouTube the previous episodes on how everything kind of ramped up to be, and follow along on this epic journey with Onslaught. But if you have any questions, you can reach out to me on Instagram, at BryTheComicBookGuy, or you can reach out to me, my email, BryTheComicBookGuy@gmail.com. We can talk about anything you want to talk about. If you have any questions that lead up to the events of Onslaught, or anything about this week's episode. So until next week, thanks for listening.